I'm Kurt Top, and these are 100 stone artifacts that can't be replicated even today. Serrated stones. Amazing artifacts resembling bronze gears, which were previously found in Peru, were discovered in Southern California. These stone gears are known as the California Cogged stones, ranging from 2 to 6 inches in diameter and up to 2 inches thick. Scientists believe that they were made sometime between 6,000 and 3,500 BC. Looking at these artifacts with modern eyes, they may seem primitive, but these stones have different features, such as cups, round indentations, and teeth along the edges, as well as patterns that resemble cupcakes. Surprisingly, about 15 of them have a hole in the center, often narrow on one side. Scientists have also discovered a curious anomaly. In the middle, there is a perfect square hole, which would be difficult to reproduce even with modern technology. This suggests that their ancient creators were familiar with advanced technologies. The purpose of these stone discs still remains a mystery. Some suggest that they were used for certain ritual purposes, but who created these stones and why remains an open question. Today, the prevailing opinion is that these gears were used as ceremonial objects, but their meaning and symbolism are still up for discussion. They covered the deceased with plaster. Archaeologists used cutting-edge technologies to shed light on one of the strangest Roman burial traditions, which involved covering the body of the deceased with plaster. Plaster was poured directly into the coffin, enveloping the entire body. The result was something like a 3D model of the deceased. These Roman plaster burials are found throughout Europe and North Africa. In Roman Britain, about 45 such burials have been discovered. Scientists scanned 16 plaster burials from the Yorkshire Museum in the United Kingdom. The scan revealed a plaster coffin containing the remains of 2 adults and an infant who died together. And what do these 3D models give us? They have detailed the shapes, sizes, and positions of each of the deceased, as well as how they were dressed or wrapped. It turns out that 3D visualization is a huge help in studying ancient finds. So why did the Romans engage in such a strange burial practice? Scientists suggest that this could be related to high social status. Regardless of the reasons, this unusual burial practice turned out to be extremely useful for archaeologists. Plaster casts preserve a lot of details that are usually lost over time, including the clothing of the deceased. Another labyrinth under the city. Now we move to Scotland on the southern outskirts of Edinburgh. There is a former mining village called Gilmerton. On the outside, it's an ordinary place. Houses, streets, cars, people going about their business. But just a few meters underground, there is a man-made labyrinth whose origin still cannot be properly explained. This is the Gilmerton Cove. Inside, there are corridors, halls, stone benches, tables, niches, drainage channels, and a deep vertical well. All of this was carved directly into the sandstone by hand. No explosions, no modern equipment, no machines. Someone spent a very long time and worked very carefully to carve out an entire system of rooms underground. The official story was quite simple. Many believe the cave was made by local blacksmith George Patterson. Supposedly, he worked almost alone for 5 years and by 1724 had made himself an underground dwelling. Later, he used this place as a secret tavern. On weekends, local gentlemen would go down there to have a drink away from prying eyes. It sounds strange, but it's still believable. A blacksmith, an underground pub, stone tables, secret gatherings. It sounds like a pretty plausible story. The problem is that later researchers began to notice that the cave might be much older than Patterson himself. Maybe he didn't carve it out from scratch, but simply found already existing passages, expanded them, and adapted them for himself. And that's when things get much more interesting. If the blacksmith wasn't the real creator, then who made this labyrinth? There are many theories. Some mention the Templars, who might have hidden here after being persecuted. Others mention the Masons, because the layout seems too well thought out for an ordinary cellar. Some see a connection with ancient Celtic rituals, especially because of the deep vertical well. And a more down-to-earth version talks about smugglers who needed a place to secretly store whiskey and goods to avoid taxes. And the most frustrating thing for researchers and historians is that it's almost impossible to verify anything for sure now. The cave was used, altered, rebuilt, dirtied, cleaned, and changed again for centuries. Too many people have left their traces there, and the earliest evidence could have simply disappeared. Gilmerton Cave is remarkable not because it's huge or older than the pyramids. It's strange because it's located right under an ordinary residential area, but at the same time, no one knows for sure who created it or why. A mystery can sometimes be found not in the desert or at the bottom of the sea, but right under our feet. People walk above it every day and don't even realize that there's an entire underground world below. Ancient stone circles in Saudi Arabia. Archaeologists in Saudi Arabia have excavated 8 ancient stone circles that served as dwellings for people more than 7,000 years ago. About 345 such structures have been identified through aerial photography in the lava field of Harat Uwairid near the city of Al-Ula in the northwest of Saudi Arabia. The stone circles have a diameter ranging from 4 to 8 meters and include at least one standing stone in the center. During the excavations, archaeologists discovered numerous stone tools made of basalt. From just 5 circles, almost 225 kilograms of stone tools or their fragments were recovered. Bones of sheep, goats, and cows were also found. Among the finds were various seashells from the Red Sea, located about 120 kilometers to the west. The round shape of houses was a global phenomenon in early architecture. Rectangular houses appeared later, during the Neolithic period. The architecture of standing stone circles in Saudi Arabia is similar to structures found in Jordan, which date to about 500 years earlier. The people who built these structures also raised sheep, goats, and cattle. The harsh realities of ancient Egypt. During archaeological excavations in Goza, on the site of an ancient Egyptian gold mine, iron shackles about 2,200 years old were found. These heavy shackles became direct evidence of ancient accounts describing the cruel treatment of people who worked in the mines during the reign of the Ptolemaic dynasty. The shackles were discovered in a room that served as an ancient storage facility. Inside, there were tools for processing ore, fragments of pottery, and 2 sets of shackles. One of them consisted of 7 ring locks connected by iron links, and the other had 4 links and damaged hoops. Their design is strikingly similar to the shackles found in the silver mines of Lorient in Greece, which suggests the transfer of technology and possibly forced labor methods from the Greek world to Egypt. Archaeologist Berengere Redon notes that this discovery confirms ancient texts describing the fates of prisoners of war and criminals who were sent to forced labor. The mine in Goza was active in the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC during a period of intensive mining expansion under the Ptolemies. Homes, streets, and even baths were found there, but behind that orderly facade were harsh conditions. Interestingly, archaeologists also found tablets and shards with inscriptions indicating that some workers were paid while others worked under strict control. A skull with a metal plate. About 2,000 years ago, somewhere in pre-Hispanic Peru, a man received a blow to the head. We don't know with what. Maybe it was a stone, maybe a club with a metal tip, maybe in battle, maybe as part of a ritual. But the skull fracture was so serious that without intervention, he would have died. This is a medical fact that can be seen directly on the bone. And then someone took metal. Most likely, it was a piece from a household item. A bowl, a fastener, some fragment that happened to be the right size and shape and was at hand. It was processed, shaped to fit the fracture, and implanted directly into the skull bone. Today, this skull is kept at the Museum of Osteology in Oklahoma. It is about 2,000 years old, and it's one of the most inconvenient exhibits for people who think that ancient people were primitive because the ancient patients survived. This is not an assumption. It's literally written in the bone. Regeneration began around the metal plate. Bone tissue started to grow around the implant, accepting it, fusing with it. This is a process that takes months. That means the person lived long enough after the surgery for their body to adapt to a piece of metal in their skull. Think about what that means in practice. Someone, 2,000 years ago, understood that you need to stop the bleeding, close the wound, and fix the bone. And they understood it well enough to do it with metal and not kill the patient with infection, blood loss, or shock from pain. There was probably anesthesia. Coca was known in Peru. Sterility, some form of wound treatment for sure. This is neurosurgery. And in the 1st century AD, without hospitals, without education, without textbooks. By the way, the exact composition of the metal is still not determined. Museum representatives admit this. Research is ongoing. It might be copper, it might be an alloy. But even without knowing the composition, we know the main thing. It worked. Now the second feature of this skull, it's elongated, intentionally stretched. Not a disease, not an anomaly, but a tradition. In pre-Hispanic Peru, social elites were literally distinguished by the shape of their heads. From birth, children's heads were tightly bound with special boards, and the skull gradually took on an elongated shape. This was a status symbol that couldn't be faked. It was formed over years, starting from early childhood. This means that our warrior with metal in his head was a person from the upper class, which adds another layer to the story, the elite. So, he had access to the best specialists who knew how to do it. Maybe that's why he survived, while an ordinary soldier with the same fracture would simply die. Medicine 2,000 years ago worked on the same principles as today. If you have money and connections, your chances are better. Some things never change. Untouched Maya burial. In a mysterious cave in Tulum, located in the Mexican state of Quintana Roo, archaeologists discovered an untouched Maya burial. The discovery was made while building a path between two ancient temples. Researchers unexpectedly stumbled upon a cave where human remains were found beneath a massive rock. The unusual nature of the burials raised many questions. Some skeletons were separated by the rock, as if a person was trying to reach a hidden chamber but ended up trapped. 8 burials were found in the cave, which was only half a meter high. The dry environment helped preserve the remains in their original state. 2 small chambers with animal remains were discovered in the cave, some of whose bones are coated as if with clay. The finds date back to the late post-classic period. The difficult excavation conditions do not stop the archaeologists who are planning a 3-dimensional scan of the area. A family crypt in the city center. In British Martik, next to the Church of All Saints, the ground suddenly collapsed. At first, they thought it was just a regular sinkhole after heavy rains. But when the workers cleared the edge of the pit, it became clear a stone chamber was hidden beneath the surface. An 18th century family crypt that no one had seen for about 300 years. The crypt is built from local hamstone, the very same that is now quarried in only 2 places in England. Inside there should be shelves with 4 burials from one family. Who exactly was buried here is still unclear. The church records are currently being reviewed, but nearby there is a tomb from 1760, and by the style of the masonry, it's clear that it belongs to the same period. Priest Paul Filler said that the rains washed away the foundation, and the crypt's ceiling simply couldn't hold. Human remains are not visible yet. Everything is at a standstill. It's covered with a mixture of gravel, soil, and debris. But the very fact that the crypt stood for several centuries unnoticed in the center of the village surprises even archaeologists. Tombs of this type were a sign of status. The family it belonged to was most likely wealthy, perhaps the Tanners and the Pitardi family, who were well known in this area. The mysterious petroglyphs of Dighton Rock. On the bank of the Taunton River in Massachusetts, there is a small museum with a single but very unusual exhibit, a 40-ton boulder that was taken out of the water and installed here in 1963. This stone, known as Dighton Rock, has long puzzled researchers with its mysterious inscriptions, the origin of which has remained a mystery for several centuries. The rock measures about 1.5 meters high, 3.5 meters long, and 3 meters wide. Its surface, covered with petroglyphs, was once slanted toward the water and probably served as a kind of message from a sailor. The symbols engraved on the stone are straight lines, geometric shapes, primitive images of people, and strange writings. The first written mention of the Dighton Rock dates back to 1680. The English colonist John Danforth drew the symbols, and 10 years later Reverend Cotton Mather described them in his book, calling them strange marks left by unknown ancient peoples. The rock gave rise to many hypotheses. In 1837, the Danish researcher Carl Christian Rafn claimed that the inscriptions were made by Vikings and were connected to the journey of Thorfinn Karlsefni, who, according to Scandinavian sagas, reached the shores of North America in the 11th century. His theory caused a sensation, but in 1916, Professor Edmund Delabar from Brown University proved that Rafn had forged the image by adding lines that supported his hypothesis. Delabar himself proposed a new version. He saw the name Miguel Cartirial and the date 1511 in the inscriptions. In his opinion, this message was left by a Portuguese explorer who went missing in America. In 1502, Cartirial set out to search for his brother, who had gone missing off the coast of Newfoundland, but he himself disappeared. Perhaps he was forced to stay among the Indians, and 9 years later he carved a message about his fate on the rock. Delabar's theory found support in Portugal, but it was received with caution in the rest of the world. Some believe that the authors of the inscriptions were ancient Phoenicians, while others say they were Chinese who reached America long before Columbus. Despite centuries of research, the Dighton Rock remains one of the most mysterious archaeological finds in the United States, continuing to inspire researchers to search for its true history. A Byzantine ring with an icon. In Turkey near Malatya, archaeologists found a small ornament dating back to the late Byzantine period, a ring with a miniature carved icon. It ended up in the ground about 1,000 years ago, but it looks as if it was just taken off someone's finger. The ring is made of bronze with an inlay of soft stone. There is a micro-engraving on the stone, a saint's figure, hand raised in blessing, clothing folds, and the halo's outline. All of this is smaller than a fingernail. Such rings were worn as personal protection, almost like a pocket icon. People believed that even a small image could protect them on the road, in battle, and in sickness. This specimen is almost undamaged. Even the patterned side walls have remained intact. Judging by the place where it was found, the ring was lost by someone who lived or traveled near the fortress that stood here in the 11th century, perhaps a merchant or a soldier. On Byzantine roads, such items were often lost, but usually they were destroyed. A special detail is that the engraving is so finely done that modern restorers had to make a copy under a microscope to fully understand the scene. Such miniatures were often worn away after just a few decades of use. A fragment of the oldest book was studied by Teresa Zamate Lupi, a restorer from the City University, who examined a papyrus dated to the 3rd century BC and discovered traces of binding on it. Just think, she held in her hands a page from a book that is more than 2,000 years old. This unique fragment was discovered in 1902 next to a mummy, and this find could rewrite the entire history of books, since it is 400 years older than the oldest books known to us. To this day, it is believed that the oldest books were created between 150 and 250 AD, and some of them can be seen at the British Library in London and the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin. Scientists are sure that similar relics may be hidden in other museums. They just haven't been discovered yet. After all, papyrus was a fairly accessible writing material, and it was used extensively. This amazing fragment, about 15 by 20 centimeters in size, was found in the Egyptian necropolis of Kibeh. It is part of a collection of 52 papyri. Today we have a unique opportunity to learn the story hidden behind every symbol on these ancient pages. The Lady of Baza. We stay in Spain, but we go back 6 centuries earlier. The 4th century BC, the Iberian Peninsula. Somewhere in the south, in the area of the modern city of Baza, a woman lies in the ground, or rather, her image. It is a limestone sculpture just over 1.2 meters tall. The woman sits on a winged throne, richly dressed with an embroidered cloak, jewelry, and a complex hairstyle. Pink paint remains on her cheeks, and red stripes line the cloak's edges. 2,400 years in the ground, and the paint has partially survived. This is the Lady of Baza, one of the most mysterious artifacts of the Iberian Peninsula. But here is what makes her truly strange. When archaeologists unearthed the statue in 1971, they found cremated human remains to her right, not next to her, but inside her. There is a niche in the right side of the sculpture, small and neat. That is where the burned bones were placed. The statue was not a monument, not a tombstone. It was an urn, a throne in which the dead woman sat, literally inside her own statue. Who this woman was is unknown. The Iberians left no written records to explain this. Based on the quality of the work, the richness of the clothing, and the type of burial, this was clearly not an ordinary person. A priestess, a queen, a representative of the highest nobility. The winged throne adds another layer. In Iberian culture, wings were associated with the transition between worlds. The one who sits on the winged throne is not just dead, they are already on their way, or have already arrived. It creates an unsettling image. The woman sits calmly, with dignity. The wings are folded, and inside her is the woman herself. Burned, crushed, placed inside stone, the body inside, the ashes inside. Two versions of the same person in one object. The Iberians came up with a way to preserve a person in two states at once, and they did it in such a way that 24 centuries later, we stand before this sculpture and still can't fully understand what exactly we're seeing. The Lady of Baza is now kept in the National Archaeological Museum in Madrid, and every year, the same debate arises around her. Catalonia wants to return her to the place where she was found. Madrid won't give her up. Even in death, she continues to cause conflicts. Some women are like that. Ancient floor made of bones. In the Dutch city of Alkmaar, archaeologists discovered a unique find, a section of flooring made from animal bones. This rare discovery was made on Achterdam Street during building renovation work. A floor made of bones is truly rare, especially for the province of North Holland, although similar examples have already been found in other historic cities in the region, such as Hoorn, Enkhuizen, and Edam. Archaeologists discovered that the floor is partially made up of bones from the middle parts of the legs and feet of large cattle. The bones were carefully processed to achieve the same height and arranged in a pattern. Some were placed with the tips facing up, others with the flat cuts. They filled the gaps between the tiles of the old ceramic flooring, creating a unique decorative pattern. The purpose of the bones in the floor's construction remains a mystery. Perhaps they were used because they were readily available and inexpensive, or due to certain functions of the building. Perhaps some specific activity took place here, related to meat trading or animal processing, but the exact reasons have yet to be determined. The Maya snake sphere. In Guatemala, in the Xochon region, archaeologists unearthed a round Maya stone sphere with a carved image of a snake. It is about 1,500 years old. At first glance, it is just a decorative stone, but the more scientists study it, the more questions arise. The sphere is perfectly carved with no signs of rough workmanship. On its surface is a relief of a snake coiled into a ring, poised to strike, bulging eyes and neatly carved scales. But the main thing is that the object does not fit into the usual ritual items of the Maya. It is not an altar, not a game ball, and not a building element. There is a theory that the sphere was used as a marker stone in ritual processions, where the snake represented the path between worlds. There is also a suggestion that it is part of a complex dedicated to Kukulkan, and there is a hypothesis that the stone was rotated. In some areas, there are traces of slight wear, as if it was spun in hands or on the floor. The strangest thing is the quality of its craftsmanship. The local stone is hard, but the sphere is crafted almost like jewelry without any chips. Such work could have been done by craftsmen from a major center, but Shogun was a small settlement, so either a visiting carver worked here or this item was brought from far away. Archaeologists call such a find a mimic artifact, a thing that looks familiar but doesn't fit into any known category. Such objects are extremely rare, and it is these objects that most strongly challenge our understanding of what Maya rituals looked like. A bracelet that shouldn't exist. In 2008, fragments of a bracelet were found in Denisova Cave in the Altai. Denisova Cave is a place in the Altai Mountains in Siberia, where several tens of thousands of years ago, the paths of three different types of humans crossed: the Denisovans, the Neanderthals, and our direct ancestors. Imagine three different types of humans living in the same region. Sometimes they meet, sometimes they fight, sometimes they have children together. It sounds like the plot of a science fiction novel or a video game, but this is not fiction or imagination. This is literally what happened in the Altai region many years ago. They lived side by side, sometimes fought, sometimes traded, and even had children together. All of this has been proven by DNA analysis of real samples. Science has done what once seemed impossible. It has reconstructed the relationships between different human species. In 2010, scientists compared the DNA of modern humans with DNA extracted from Denisovan and Neanderthal bones for the first time, and they discovered a sequence. These sequences are present in the genomes of living people right now. You yourself, quite likely, carry a few % of Neanderthal DNA. This is not a metaphor or a poetic image. It's literally a fact that can be verified by taking a test at the nearest genetic laboratory. We don't just study these people from afar. In the most literal sense, we are their descendants, with fragments of their DNA living inside us right now. Some people living today carry a few percent of Denisovan DNA within them, and they simply don't know it. The bracelet belongs specifically to the Denisovans. Chloride is a semi-precious mineral with a greenish tint that had to be found, extracted, and processed. It was polished so well that on a sunny day it reflects light, and by a nighttime campfire it shines with a deep emerald hue. It's a beautiful item. The find is 50,000 years old. That's already incredible in itself. At school we were told that the Stone Age was all about clubs and caves, but here we see jewelry. This already shows a sense of aesthetics, which shows that the Denisovan wanted to look beautiful. That's a need we somehow tend to think of as purely modern. But when scientists looked at the hole in the bracelet under a microscope, the story became completely different. The hole was drilled, perfectly even with smooth walls. Imagine you're trying to drill through hard stone without any metal tools. All you have is another stone, bone, or wood. You work with your hands, rotating the tool manually, trying to keep a constant speed. You'll end up with something uneven, with jagged edges and deviations. It's impossible to keep the speed and direction constant by hand, but here we see perfectly even holes. That's exactly what amazes researchers. If you drilled this by hand, the walls of the hole would be uneven, with characteristic scratches and deviations. That's not the case here. The walls are smooth, as if a machine had done the work. This technology officially appeared among humans in the Neolithic era about 12,000 years ago. The bracelet is 4 times older than that. Imagine putting a smartphone in front of a medieval blacksmith and telling him it was made in the year 800. That's about how the scientists felt. The head of the excavation, Anatoly Derevienko, described the technique briefly. The ancient craftsman possessed skills that were not previously considered characteristic of the Paleolithic era. His colleague Mikhail Shunkov said directly, "The Denisovans were technologically more advanced than Homo sapiens and Neanderthals of the same period." It's a bold claim, but he has the bracelet. So far, there's no other explanation. Of course, there were skeptics. The bracelet could have ended up in this layer from more recent deposits. Additional studies were conducted. Oxygen isotope analysis showed that the layer hadn't been disturbed. The bracelet had been there since the time of the Denisovans. Now, scientists from Russia, Britain, and Australia are re-examining all the dating. There is new evidence that the age might be even greater, up to 60 or 65,000 years. If this is confirmed, explaining the origin of this bracelet will be even more difficult. That's what still worries and troubles me. From an entire species of people who lived on Earth for tens of thousands of years, only a few teeth, a fragment of a pinky finger, and this bracelet remain, which glints brightly in the sun and shouldn't even exist. I'm sure there is still so much we don't know about our past, and especially about the beings who were very much like us. They lived here for tens of thousands of years. They built, they thought, they wanted to be beautiful, and all that's left of it is a single green bracelet. The Neolithic Swiss knife. On the border of Germany and Switzerland in the Wangen-Hinterhorn area, archaeologists found an unusual object, a Neolithic knife with a wooden handle. It is 7.3 centimeters long. The blade is made of flint, and the wooden handle is fixed with birch resin. There is also a hole on the side for carrying. The whole design resembles something like an ancient multi-tool. In fact, the find has already been called the first Swiss knife in history. The tool dates back to the Neolithic era, around 4,300 to 3,500 BC. It was found at a settlement of the Finn culture, a society that lived near swamps and lakes in what is now southern Germany and northern Switzerland. People here built pile dwellings, practiced agriculture, kept livestock, used copper items, and even had woven cloth. The Wangen knife is simple, reflecting its era's focus on convenience, reliability, and versatility. It's neither ceremonial, a weapon, nor decorative. This is a tool that was used every day, and it is exactly such finds that are important. The mystery of Stonehenge. Stonehenge is like a riddle made of stone. It has stood on the Salisbury Plain for more than 4,000 years. The giant stones are arranged in a circle with inner and outer rings. Some of them weigh up to 25 tons. Some were brought from hundreds of kilometers away. How, why, and who did this? Scientists are still debating. Some say it's simply a Druid sanctuary. Others believe the complex was built long before the Celts appeared, about 1,000 years earlier. There's also a theory that it was an ancient observatory. After all, certain stones are indeed aligned with the solstices. But even if that's true, why was such a large scale necessary? The problem is that we have almost no written sources from that time. We can only guess. But one thing is truly impressive: the engineering precision. The stone stood upright, topped with horizontal blocks, creating portals. This requires not only strength, but also knowledge. And after all, this wasn't a developed city, but essentially a field. No metal, no blueprints, no machinery. What's even stranger is that in the 20th century, Stonehenge was reconstructed. Some stones were put back in place using cranes. So we still aren't sure which stones are in their original positions and which ones have already been moved. This adds even more confusion to an already complicated story. Alfred's mysterious ornament. In 1693 in Somerset County, a farmer accidentally came across an object that changed historians' perception of early medieval England. Under a layer of earth, the plow uncovered a unique artifact, Alfred's ornament, dating back to the 9th century. This find is striking in its craftsmanship. The item, made of gold and enamel, was decorated with an intricate pattern and the inscription, "Alfred ordered me to make this." The artifact was associated with the legendary King Alfred the Great, known as one of the most enlightened rulers of England. It is believed that the ornament may have been part of a staff or pointer used for reading sacred texts. This instrument symbolizes the union of power, wisdom, and Alfred's pursuit of enlightenment. The connection with UFOs and the mysteries of the past becomes intriguing if you delve into the symbolism of the object. Some researchers suggest that the intricate design of the ornament and its shiny finish might have been inspired by sightings of unusual celestial phenomena. In those times, comets and lights in the sky were perceived as messages from the gods or even extraterrestrial civilizations. Jade Bowls, 1980s Ecuador. Adventurous archaeologist Elias Sattermeyer ventures deep into the jungle, inspired by stories of a mysterious underground city. The city was never found, but Elias discovered amazing artifacts that glow in the dark, over 18,000 years old. And here they are, forgotten in a corner. 12 bowls and a goblet crafted with incredible precision from hard-to-work jade. Amazing, right? But it gets even more interesting. Each cup is an exact replica of the others, and all of them precisely match the volume of the goblet. But what if back in those ancient times, there were advanced stoneworking machines in Ecuador? And here's the cherry on top. Each cup and goblet depicts a different constellation. Just imagine the level of astronomical knowledge their creators must have had. And all of this could be connected to the legendary city of the Red Sun, which, according to myths, once existed here in Ecuador. Maybe our mysterious artifacts are all that remains of its inhabitants. The Merneptah Stele. The long enslavement of the Jews by the Egyptians and their subsequent exodus from Egypt represent one of the most complicated chapters in the history of ancient Egypt. Although archaeological evidence of this event is limited, every discovery is of great significance. Some claim there's no evidence Jews were in Egypt during the Exodus and in Merneptah's time, but that's incorrect. The most well-known evidence is the stele of Pharaoh Merneptah, discovered in Thebes in 1896. It refers to the military achievements of Merneptah and contains the earliest mention of Israel. The stele identifies Israel not as a state, but as a people hostile to Egypt. This fact is interesting because Merneptah was a descendant of Rameses II, the possible pharaoh from the book of Exodus. According to the Bible, the exodus of the Jews marked the beginning of the formation of Jewish statehood. Merneptah may have witnessed the rise of Egyptian dominance in the region, which later weakened under Rameses VI. During this period, new states were mainly formed by migrants from southern Italy, the Aegean Sea, and western Anatolia. The mention of Israel may confirm the biblical version of the Israelites returning to their land from the south. The Iron Man Buddha. This is an astonishing discovery that has shocked scientists all over the world. This statue, about 24 centimeters tall and weighing 10 kilograms, was made from a fragment of a meteorite. The artifact represents the image of the Buddhist god Vaisravana, who symbolizes protection and wealth. The origin of the statue has been carefully studied by researchers. According to the analysis, the material used to create it was taken from the Chinga meteorite, which fell on the border of Mongolia and Siberia about 15,000 years ago. It is believed that the statue was created in the 11th century AD in Tibet. It's amazing how ancient craftsmen, without even suspecting the cosmic origin of the material, were able to shape it so skillfully and turn it into a work of art. In 1938, the expedition of Ernst Schaefer, financed by Nazi Germany, discovered the statue in Tibet and brought it to Germany. Subsequently, its origin and material remained a subject of debate and mystery for a long time, until recent scientific research revealed its amazing history. Today, the Iron Man is not only a majestic work of art, but also a testament to the unique combination of nature and human craftsmanship. The Golden Tablets of Darius. For the next discovery, we move to the very heart of Persepolis, once the greatest capital of the world. In 1933, archaeologists were excavating the foundations of the Apadana Palace, the main ceremonial hall of King Darius the Great. Under the massive cornerstones, they discovered 2 stone boxes that were sealed so tightly that not a drop of moisture had penetrated them in the last 2,500 years. When the lids were lifted, the researchers froze. Inside each box lay 2 plates, one of purest gold, the other of silver. These were the famous tablets of Darius, a kind of passports of the empire, left for descendants. But what is striking here is not so much the content of the text as the incredible quality of the craftsmanship. These plates have a perfect square shape with sides of 33 centimeters and a mirror-smooth surface. The cuneiform text is inscribed in 3 languages: Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian. The depth and clarity of each character are impressive. It seems that the symbols were not just hammered and chiseled, but carved with a high-precision tool. The edges of each letter are so sharp that they create the unmistakable impression of machine engraving. Darius wanted his messages about the borders of the empire, from the lands of the Scythians beyond Sogdiana to the shores of Kush, to be eternal, and he chose metals that are resistant to corrosion for this purpose. The tablets were placed in the foundation of the palace as a magical and legal cornerstone of the state. The fact that the gold and silver have retained their original luster speaks to the highest degree of metal purification available to Persian craftsmen of that time. These are not just ingots, they are a demonstration of technological superiority. Darius understood that empires fall and buildings turn to dust, so he entrusted his will to the most reliable vault, the depth of the foundation, and eternal gold. These artifacts are still considered the standard of ancient calligraphy and metallurgy, proving that the greatness of Persia was literally embedded in every gram of its precious foundation. Faceless figure. In the Dumjili cave in Azerbaijan, archaeologists found a tiny sandstone figurine, only 5 centimeters long. The details are crafted with great precision, the hairstyle, belt, and clothing, but the face is absent, with no gender or expression, only a restrained pose and a sense of an image. This 9,000-year-old find is the first human figurine from the Mesolithic period discovered in the South Caucasus. Its value lies not in being the first, but simply in its existence. In an area where pottery was unknown, someone was already carving a human figure. Scientists believe that the figurine belongs to a transitional era when nomads were becoming settled and not just dwellings appeared, but also rituals, memory, and symbols. The Neolithic period didn't arrive suddenly. It emerged through things like this, quietly, slowly, and almost unnoticed. The mystery of the Basel mummy. I've already talked about this discovery in one of my videos, but the story has changed. In 1975, in the Swiss city of Basel, in the Barfüßer Church, the mummified remains of a woman were found, and to this day, it was believed that she died of syphilis. Researchers came to this conclusion because a lot of mercury was found in her body. In the 18th century, mercury was used to treat syphilis, which is why they drew those conclusions. But now it has been established that the woman died from a bacterium unknown to science. The woman's name was Anna Katharina Bischoff. She was the wife of a pastor and died in 1787. With the help of DNA analysis, researchers even identified her descendants. One of them, with a probability of 99%, is the British politician Boris Johnson. Scientists discovered a new bacterium, which was mostly found in brain tissues, and this correlated with the highest concentration of mercury in the brain. Most likely the doctor at that time made an incorrect diagnosis and treated her for syphilis with mercury, which significantly weakened the woman's body. In addition, she was overweight, had gallstones, and other illnesses. In the 18th century, claiming that a wealthy priest's widow had syphilis, which was transmitted sexually, was too humiliating. When people of such status died, an obituary was written about them, stating who the person was in life, what they did, and what they died from. There isn't a single word about this woman. Bischoff's diagnosis would not have allowed her to use public baths or receive treatment in a regular hospital. As a result, the mercury she was treated with slowed down decomposition and turned her into a mummy. A risque artifact. In the Mongai Mountains of northern Mongolia, archaeologists discovered a real sensation, a stone ornament in the shape of a human phallus. Yes, you heard that right. This small carved piece of graphite, 4.3 centimeters long, is the oldest known depiction of a human with sexual characteristics. Believe it or not, its age is estimated to be between 42,400 and 41,900 years, so it dates back to the Upper Paleolithic. Such phallic pendants are something new in Paleolithic history. They show that the first hunter-gatherers were already using sexual characteristics as symbols. You can notice indentations on the pendant, which, according to scientists, resemble the male sex organ. The most interesting thing is that the back of the pendant is smooth, while the front is not. It seems that the pendant was worn around the neck. The surface of the pendant is a bit worn, which suggests that it was passed down from generation to generation. The tomb that people are afraid to study. Now let's go back to the place where this video began. In China, not far from the city of Xi'an, under a huge burial mound lies the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor who unified China. He introduced a unified script, currency, and laws. In 1974, some farmers were digging a well and accidentally discovered the first terracotta warrior. Then, an entire army emerged from the ground. Thousands of clay soldiers, chariots, horses, and weapons. Each warrior has his own face and details. But that was only the outer part of the complex. The main tomb of the emperor has not been opened to this day, and the reason is not that it can't be found. The location is known. The mound has been studied for decades. According to researchers, there is a huge underground palace beneath it, but archaeologists are in no hurry to open that door. The ancient historian Sima Qian wrote that inside the tomb flow rivers of mercury. The ceiling is decorated like a starry sky, and crossbows set to fire automatically are hidden in the floor for uninvited guests. For a long time, this sounded like a legend, but soil analysis above the mound showed abnormally high levels of mercury. So, the story about mercury rivers might not be made up, and that's already a serious problem. If there really are large amounts of mercury inside, opening the tomb could be dangerous for people and for the environment. No one knows for sure what will happen if the chamber, which has been sealed for more than 2,000 years, is disturbed. Traps also can't be completely dismissed as fairy tales. In neighboring Qin dynasty tombs, ancient crossbow mechanisms have been found, which have been surprisingly well preserved. But even that is not the main fear. The main fear is destroying what lies inside. When the pits with the terracotta warriors were opened, the bright paint on the figures began to deteriorate almost immediately after coming into contact with air. And in the main tomb, there could be fabrics, wood, paintings, bronze, documents, and items that no one has seen since the emperor's burial. That's why China officially says the tomb will not be opened until technology allows everything found to be preserved. And there is logic in that. Sometimes archaeology is not only about the desire to uncover a mystery, but also about the ability to stop at the right moment. The strangest thing is that we know where one of the greatest unexcavated tombs in history is located. We have radars, sensors, laboratories, and money. But the door still remains closed. Qin Shi Huangdi wanted to control everything during his lifetime. And after 2,200 years, it's as if he still doesn't let people into his underground world. The mysterious coffin. This archaeological find was discovered in Japan. It will make our journey into the past even more interesting and exciting. Archaeologists found a huge stone coffin in the ruins of the ancient Yoshinogari fortress. The length of this coffin is an astonishing 3.2 meters. This is 1.5 meters longer than the typical tombs of that time. Inside the coffin, there is another one, much smaller, about 2.3 meters long. The coffin is made of 4 stone slabs, each of which looks very impressive. The coffin was discovered in the Yoshinogari Fortress in Sago Province on Kyushu Island, Japan. At that time, the fortress was the largest settlement in Japan, surrounded by a deep moat. Other tombs have already been discovered in the ruins of the fortress, but this coffin is the largest of all known to science. Scientists have determined that this giant tomb was built between the 2nd and 3rd centuries, during the era of the Yamatai state. There are marks on the surface of the coffin, probably made with open metal tools. Some of them resemble a Japanese katakana character. These marks were probably meant to protect the deceased from evil forces. Scientists believe that someone very important might have been buried in the coffin, since ordinary people were not buried on top of the hill. The enormous size of the tomb also suggests this. They plan to open the coffin soon. We'll find out what scientists discover inside in upcoming videos. In the meantime, you can write your guess in the comments about what might be hidden inside this giant coffin. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated about new archaeological discoveries, and I will continue. A sanctuary inside the rocks. Deep within the Iranian mountains, there are objects hidden that have remained unseen by outsiders for centuries. These are the temples of the god Mithra, a mysterious underground sanctuary where, thousands of years ago, rituals were performed, the details of which still baffle scientists today. Mithraism was a religion of warriors and the elite, and its main requirement was absolute secrecy. That is why Mithraea, as these temples were called, were always built either completely underground or carved into rock. The most impressive example of such a structure is located near the city of Maragay. This is the Mare Temple, which is a giant hall carved inside a huge hill. When you enter inside, your perception of space changes. This is not just a cave, but a perfectly shaped geometric structure. The huge dome carved in the monolithic stone amazes with its precision. The ancient builders did not use supporting columns or external supports. The entire vault is held together by engineering calculations and the strength of the rock itself. A single hole is made in the center of the dome, through which a thin beam of sunlight enters. At different times of the year, this beam falls on specific areas of the floor, serving as a kind of astronomical calendar for the priests. The atmosphere inside such temples was both oppressive and majestic. There were no windows here, and the only source of light, apart from the sun, was oil torches. Temple walls were often adorned with reliefs showing constellations and mythological scenes. Scientists still argue about how the craftsmen managed to create such fine, detailed carvings in conditions of almost complete darkness. They probably used a system of bronze mirrors that passed sunlight from one mirror to the next, to the deepest corners of the sanctuary. But the most interesting thing is the acoustics. Due to the unique shape of the vaults, even a whisper at one end of the hall can be heard clearly at the other. This created the effect of the deity's presence and enhanced the psychological impact during initiation rituals. The warriors who came here for initiation took an oath of loyalty that could not be broken under penalty of death. This tradition of devotion and discipline permeated the Iranian mountains for centuries. Today, many of these temples are abandoned or have been converted into mosques, but their underground structure remains unchanged. They remind us that for the ancient inhabitants of Iran, the underground world was not a place of fear, but a realm of ultimate, authentic power. While empires and religions changed on the surface, ancient knowledge continued to live in the darkness of the rocks, which even today makes us stand in awe of the skill of those who knew how to master stone itself. The Babylonian vision of the earth and beyond. The Babylonian map of the world, or Imago Mundi, is one of the oldest known maps created around the 8th century BC. The tablet, made of clay, reflects the ancient Babylonians' view of the earth. At the center of the map is Babylon, located on the Euphrates River. The map is surrounded by important geographical features: Susa to the south, Urartu to the northeast, and Haban to the northwest. Beyond this territory are triangular regions, which researchers believe symbolize unknown lands or mountainous areas. The map is surrounded by a salty river called the Bitter River, which they believed ran through the entire planet. Attention is drawn to mythical inscriptions mentioning the creation of land and sea by the god Marduk, which makes the map not only a geographical, but also a cosmological artifact. The connection with UFOs arises because of the triangular areas outside the map. Some researchers believe that the ancient inhabitants of Babylon tried to depict unknown lands, which they associated with divine or extraterrestrial beings. Emerald Goblet. This 17th century emerald goblet is a true treasure, carved from a single piece of emerald weighing 252 carats. Such artifacts are extremely rare since working with such a large stone requires incredible skill. The surface of the goblet is decorated with fine inscriptions in Arabic, indicating its origin from the Islamic world, most likely from Persia or India, where the art of stone carving was highly advanced. In those days, emeralds were prized for their beauty and supposed magical qualities, believed to protect from poison and grant wisdom. Goblets made from such stones could only belong to rulers or noble aristocrats and were used on special occasions, emphasizing the owner's status. Special attention is drawn to the hexagonal shape and smooth facets, which catch the light and make the emerald glow from within. Such items symbolize power and spiritual purity, and today this goblet is considered one of the rarest and most valuable artifacts that have preserved the grandeur of past eras. Ancient Maya artifacts archaeologists from Mexico recently set out to the mysterious Chemuel Cave. This is a dark, mysterious place where secrets of the ancient Maya have been hidden for centuries. According to legends, this cave was the entrance to the underworld, where the Maya believed deities lived, so they often used the cave for their sacred ceremonies. Among the discoveries are 2 ancient vessels that were carefully placed in niches in the cave. They were probably used to collect water dripping from the stalactites. Such water was considered sacred. Another item, a tripod bowl, was found upside down and placed under stones. This suggests that it might have been part of a ritual, a sacrificial offering to the gods. The head of Medusa. At Emperor Hadrian's villa in Tivoli, archaeologists found a bronze head of Medusa the Gorgon, the very mythical figure who was supposed to turn people to stone with a single glance. But in reality, it was used differently. In Roman culture, the image of Medusa served as a protective symbol. Her face was placed on shields, on the walls of houses, on shoulder guards, and even on floors to ward off evil. The head from Tivoli dates back to around 120 AD. It is made of bronze with detailed strands of snakes and a calm, almost human expression. This is not a terrifying monster, but rather an idealized image. The Romans often softened the features of mythical creatures, turning them into decorative elements. Hadrian's villa was a vast complex with pools, halls, gardens, and copies of Greek statues. The emperor collected everything he saw during his travels: architecture, sculpture, and decorative elements. The head of Medusa probably decorated one of the halls or a facade, fitting into the overall program of the villa, where Greek myths were combined with Roman taste. A skeleton with an intact brain. Imagine a giant burial mound covering 45 hectares, which looks like a heart in aerial photographs. It's not called the heart of Western Anatolia for nothing. And now, the most interesting part. For the first time in the history of Turkish archaeology, scientists have discovered well-preserved remains of skin, as well as remnants of a brain. Just imagine brain remnants that are already 3,700 years old. Discoveries of such antiquity are truly incredible. So who were these people? One was a young guy, about 15 to 18 years old, and the other was a middle-aged man. Apparently, their house was set on fire during the Bronze Age, and they didn't manage to escape. It's frightening to imagine, but it's precisely because of this fire that their remains were so well preserved. This amazing burial mound was the real capital of its region in ancient times, but around 1700 BC it was completely destroyed as a result of an attack. And now the main question: how is this possible? How could remains of the brain and skin have been preserved for such a long time? Thanks to the extremely high temperatures of the fire, this is truly a unique and rare discovery. The mystery of the Benin bronzes. Archaeologists made an unusual discovery in Nigeria. Scientists discovered that African craftsmen made the Benin bronzes from German ore. The Benin bronzes are a large collection of 3,000 brass figurines found in Nigeria in 1897. British soldiers seized them and took them to the United Kingdom. For a long time, scientists thought that the figurines were made from inserted rings, that were used as money during the slave trade. But recent research has shown that most of the figurines are made from ore found in Germany in the Rhine region. African metalworkers made the figurines in the 16th and 17th centuries. Scientists analyzed the metal rings that Europeans exchanged for gold, ivory, and slaves in Africa. Researchers compared these rings in the Benin bronzes and found that they were made from the same ore. This discovery helped scientists better understand the history of the slave trade and learn more about how Europeans influenced African art. Today, the largest collection of Benin bronzes is in the British Museum in London. Nigeria is asking for these works of art to be returned to their homeland. And now let's think together whether European museums will return ancient artifacts back to Africa. You can write your opinion in the comments below the video. The Sultan's treasures. The Well of Hell, or Barhout's Hole, a mysterious crater in Yemen surrounded by legends and myths. Local residents believe that at the bottom of the well lies the Sultan's treasure, guarded by jinn and the dead, and that a cemetery-like smell comes from there. Scientific studies have confirmed some of these legends. Speleologists finally decided to explore the crater, taking samples from its bottom. The crater has a conical shape. Its diameter at the surface is about 30 meters, and it widens to 120 meters at the bottom. The depth of the well is 112 meters. The upper layer is porous and lets water through, while the layer below becomes denser and impermeable, which leads to the formation of 4 waterfalls and stalagmites. The Sultan's treasures turned out to be cave pearls, rare formations of calcium carbonate that form around a grain of sand or a piece of wood. In the Barhout well, they have an emerald golden color which probably misled ancient observers. Snakes and arthropods live at the bottom of the sinkhole. The grave-like smell described by the locals is caused by the decomposing bodies of animals, mostly birds, that fly into the well seeking shelter from the heat. After descending to the bottom, they can't fly back up due to the great depth. There are 2 main hypotheses about the origin of the well. First, it may be the former vent of an extinct underground volcano. Second, it could be a natural well formed by underground water erosion over millions of years. Most likely, the Barhout well was formed by the second process, which explains its unusual structure and contents. How people wrote before the Romans. In the Spanish province of Leon, archaeologists made a discovery that could change our understanding of early writing on the Iberian Peninsula. In the ancient settlement of La Peña del Castro, a spindle whorl, a small object used in weaving, was discovered with an engraved inscription made in the Celtiberian alphabet. The artifact dates back to around the 1st century BC. This is one of the northernmost and earliest finds of this kind. Before the arrival of the Romans, writing was hardly used in these areas, so the inscription became a real sensation. Scientists suggest that the text could have been a mark of ownership or had symbolic meaning, for example, indicating the status of the owner. Interestingly, the spindle whorl is made from local talc, which means it was produced right here. It was found in a storeroom where there were also baskets with seeds, tools, and even remnants of dried meat. All this points to a fairly advanced domestic life and economy. This find is important evidence that the local cultures were much more complex than previously thought, and had already begun to use writing by that time. Interstellar object. Imagine in the depths of the Pacific Ocean, there is a mystery hidden that only a brave explorer can solve. No, this isn't about a new Pirates of the Caribbean movie. This is a real scientific story told by the famous Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb. Since 2017, he has claimed that the asteroid Oumuamua, which fell into the ocean, is a crashed probe from an alien civilization. Just imagine, guys, what if it's true? Avi Loeb decided not to leave this hypothesis unchecked and assembled a team to investigate. So, what did they find? At the bottom of the ocean, off the coast of Papua New Guinea, they discovered 50 tiny iron spheres, microscopic in size, which are usually left behind by meteorites burning up in Earth's atmosphere. Loeb called them molten drops of a fireball and claims that they have incredible strength and may originate from a natural environment outside our solar system or from an extraterrestrial technological civilization. Scientists studied these spheres and found that they are stronger than any other space material ever recorded by NASA. Their composition indicates super strong iron, different from anything we know. This discovery could help future scientific expeditions search for evidence of extraterrestrial life with even greater precision. Loeb and his team from Holland hope to find even more evidence as part of the Galileo project. The goal for next year is to discover a large IM-1 artifact on the ocean floor. They may not find what they're looking for, but scientists are confident that they will learn something new either way. The sword for the immortals. Before you is not just a weapon. This is a sword created at the turn of an era when China was divided into dozens of warring kingdoms. But someone in the midst of this harsh reality did something different. Not for battles, not for victories, but as if for a ritual. The blade is bronze but with a shade of turquoise, as if the metal absorbed the color of the sky. The handle is carved from rock crystal, transparent like ice. It is inlaid with gold details and turquoise inserts. The geometry, the ornamentation, the finishing, everything is so well thought out that it becomes clear. The sword was not made for a soldier's hand. It was made for something greater. The Warring States period lasted from the 5th to the 3rd centuries, BC, a time of constant war, betrayal, and great reforms. But this sword doesn't fit that context. It speaks of ritual. It could have been used in sacrifices, in rites of passage, or as a symbol of power that had to be proven, not simply possessed. It is artifacts like these that are confusing because they don't match our idea of the ancient world. We expect rough blades and traces of battles, but instead we get crystal, gold, and metal crafted like a piece of jewelry. The salt mummies of Zanjan. If tunnels and ropes show us the grandeur of engineering ingenuity, then the next discovery reveals a frightening and incredibly detailed side of life in the depths of Iran. In Zanjan province at the Cherabad salt mine, time literally stopped thousands of years ago. Here, archaeologists discovered what at first glance seems like a crime scene, but in reality is a unique natural phenomenon. These are the salt mummies, or salt men, from Zanjan. It all began in 1993 when mine workers stumbled upon fragments of a human body. But these were not ordinary bones. Salt, which has powerful preservative properties, completely mummified the remains, preserving soft tissues, skin, hair, and even internal organs in perfect condition. The first discovery shocked scientists. It was the head of a man with long white hair and a beard, and a golden earring still glimmered in his ear. His leather boots and an iron knife were lying nearby. Research showed that this man lived more than 1,700 years ago during the Sasanian era. To date, 6 such mummies have already been discovered, and each one is a frozen moment of tragedy. The salt mines of Cherabad were a place of grueling labor for centuries. Most of these people died instantly as a result of the mine collapsing. The salt covered their bodies, drew out all the moisture, and created a sealed cocoon, protecting them from bacteria and decay. The youngest mummy is a teenager, about 16 years old. Thanks to the exceptional preservation, scientists were able to reconstruct his diet, find traces of parasites in his intestines, and even determine his blood type. For us, these findings are important not only as biological material, but also as a direct glimpse into the past. The mummies still have clothing made of cotton and wool, dyed with natural pigments that have not faded over thousands of years. The intricate patterns on the fabrics and the quality of the leather shoes indicate that ancient Iran had a very high level of textile and leather production. The gold earring and expensive fabrics found on one of the deceased indicate that not only slaves worked in the mines, but also people of high social status, possibly overseers or owners of the mines. These bodies are a living reminder of the price people paid for the riches hidden in the mountains of Iran. The Cherabad salt mines still contain dozens of unexplored corridors. Who knows how many more such witnesses of history, frozen in time, this place holds, turning the underground world of the region into a giant time capsule, where the line between life and death is erased in an instant under the weight of collapsing rock. A monastery in Sudan decorated with Christian frescoes. Archaeologists from Poland discovered a mysterious complex of rooms with Christian frescoes in the medieval monastery of Old Dongola in Africa. This city was the capital of Makuria, one of the well-known African states that became Christian in the 6th century. The scientists were studying houses from the 16th to 19th centuries and accidentally found a church with beautiful frescoes and inscriptions in Greek and Old Nubian. Under one of the houses, they discovered a secret passage leading to a room with amazing frescoes on the walls. On the walls, there were images of the Virgin Mary, Christ, Archangel Michael, and a Nubian ruler. The unique feature of this painting is that the ruler bows and kisses the hand of Christ, while Archangel Michael protects them with his wings. Such a scene has no parallels in Nubian painting. Another unusual fresco is the depiction of the Virgin Mary, dressed in dark clothes, holding a cross and a book. Christ on the opposite wall is also holding a book and giving a blessing. Interest in the history of ancient African civilizations and cultures is growing, and discoveries like this are becoming a kind of key to understanding the past of this continent. Now, scientists want to find out what these mysterious rooms were used for and how exactly they were connected to the lives of people at that time. Perhaps in the future, archaeologists will be able to discover even more hidden mysteries connected with this amazing complex in Old Dongola and other African states. Preserving these finds and studying history and culture is vital to passing knowledge of ancient civilizations to future generations. That's exactly why our channel exists, and I recommend subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss a new video. The mystery of the blue lotus. There are legends about this beautiful flower, and it grows only in the rivers and lakes of Africa and Asia. The blue lotus, also known as the Egyptian lotus or sacred lotus, has beautiful blue petals and possesses healing properties. This flower was very popular in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians believed that the water lily helped guide souls to the afterlife and communicate with the gods. It is also mentioned in the Egyptian Book of the Dead and was considered a symbol of immortality. One of the reasons why the flower was so popular in ancient times is its ability to influence a person's consciousness and behavior. It also expands the boundaries of perception. In short, it's a powerful hallucinogen. Any ancient Egyptian priest was familiar with the magical properties of the blue lotus. One of the most well-known natural hallucinogens is ayahuasca, which is still used by indigenous peoples of the Amazon and Brazilian shamans when they perform religious rituals. Another huge advantage of the blue lotus is that it doesn't require special care or conditions. In ancient Egypt, medicine, magic, and religion were very closely connected to each other. To be honest, even though people nowadays are more educated and not as wild, many still believe that illnesses can be cured with some kind of magical rituals and completely refuse to visit doctors. The first mention of this flower was noticed by archaeologists in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and later they discovered the Abers papyrus, where they found almost 1,000 different recipes and treatment methods using the blue lotus. It's a powerful aphrodisiac, and it was often used by the elite at secret gatherings in temples, adding it to sacred wines. Its fragrance is so wonderful that on the walls of tombs you can see images of people inhaling it. The blue lotus can be found in erotic papyri. The oldest stomach stone. Are you ready for a new shocking discovery? This time, we're going back 150 million years to study the oldest stomach stone ever found. This stone, about the size of your own fist, was discovered on the shores of Great Britain and is 59 million years older than any previously known stomach stone. Now, as for what animal this stone could have come from, that's pretty hard to determine without any surrounding skeletal structures. But Nigel Larkin, a paleontologist from the University of Reading, suggests that this stone could have been part of the digestive system of some large marine reptile, such as an ichthyosaur or a plesiosaur. It is worth noting that dinosaurs that lived on land were unlikely to have had this stone. But despite that, this find is amazing and extremely rare. Gastroliths are nothing more than natural mineral formations that can develop inside various organisms, from humans to ichthyosaurs. Such stones have also been found in Egyptian mummies' stomachs, though they were much smaller. An ancient gastrolith confirms that such formations existed not only in land dwellers, but also in ancient marine creatures. The oldest knives made from shark teeth. On the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, archaeologists found 2 tiger shark teeth that had been turned into knives about 7,000 years old. This discovery is evidence of the ancient use of shark teeth as weapons. Previously, the oldest known examples were 2,000 years younger. These tooth blades are associated with the mysterious Tolian culture, ancient hunter-gatherers who lived on the island long before the arrival of Neolithic farmers. The teeth, about 2 meters long, had special holes indicating they were attached to a handle. According to scientists, these blades may have been used in rituals or battles. Although shark teeth may seem like an unusual choice for weapons, ancient cultures used what was available. These knives were sharp, but their blades could become dull quickly. Ancient people around the world used shark teeth for cultural purposes, turning them into weapons or even tattooing tools. This shows their respect for these marine predators. A dam from a different era. On the Vinalopó River near the Spanish city of Elche stands a stone dam that was long believed to be a construction from the Islamic period. It seemed unusual, a massive structure at the river mouth, thick walls and traces of channels. Everything fit into the usual chronology, but a new study based on the method of optically stimulated luminescence completely changed the picture. It turned out that this structure is 1,000 years older than the previously assumed date and was built at the end of the 1st century BC, during the era of the Roman Empire. The dam, over 130 meters long and about 4 meters high, turned out to be not just a part of the landscape, but an element of the entire hydraulic system of the Roman colony of Elche. It functioned not only as a flow regulator, but was probably also used to irrigate the surrounding lands. It was not a separate structure, but part of a complex engineering network, well thought out, logical, and practical. There are no cults in this story, no inscriptions, no myths, only calculation, geometry, and a clear understanding of the terrain. The dam was not built for beauty. It was not decorated with bas-reliefs or woven into legends. It was built to stand, to let water flow where it was needed to serve the city, and it still works to this day. Over 2,000 years have passed, civilizations changed, languages vanished, yet the dam still stands. Miniature figurines from the past. These figurines, the golden ram and the stone lion, were found in a tomb at the archaeological site of Gilmerton in Turkmenistan. Their age is impressive. They date back to the period from 2400 to 1600 BC. Gilmerton is considered the heart of the mysterious Margiana civilization, which flourished in Central Asia, and it left behind many artifacts. The size of the figurines is astonishing. They literally fit on the tip of a finger, which speaks to the incredible skill of ancient jewelers. The golden ram symbolized wealth and abundance, while the stone lion represented strength and power. They were probably part of the burial inventory, meant to accompany the deceased in the afterlife and serve as amulets. Such findings confirm the high level of craftsmanship and the developed culture of Margiana. The craftsmen of that time were skilled not only in working with gold, but also with semi-precious stones, creating unique items. Today, the figurines are valuable artifacts that lift the veil of mystery over the vanished civilization. Crocodile stone. And now let's head to the amazing mountains of Laos, where the ancient ruins of the Wat Phu Temple are hidden. Among the ruins of this temple, archaeologists found a very strange thing, a huge boulder with carvings resembling a crocodile. But what's even more interesting is that there's a hollow the size of a person. Many people believe that this stone was used as an altar for human sacrifices. If that's true, then such rituals could have taken place back in the times of Chenla, the ancient empire that ruled these lands. According to legends, every year, when the frangipani petals began to fall, the king of Chenla prayed to the mountain spirits and offered rice wine to the 2 most beautiful girls. Then the girls were sacrificed to the gods. Such sacrifices are described in the 6th century history of Sui. All this time, the community far from the big cities preserved this story, which suggests its possible authenticity. However, it is unknown what role the crocodile rock played in these rituals. This unique carving makes it even more mysterious. Nothing like this has been found in the ruins of Laos or Cambodia. And here's the question. If the crocodile rock wasn't used for sacrifices, then what was it for? The discovery of the oldest nuclear reactor in the world. It's funny, but the first human-made reactor that produced electricity was only created in 1951, but a stone block in Oklo, Gabon, was already generating nuclear energy. 2 billion years ago. The story of the discovery began in 1972 when French scientists took a sample of uranium ore from a deposit in Gabon to test its uranium composition. And here the scientists stumbled upon an amazing discovery. The uranium sample contained less uranium-235 than usual. This meant that somewhere in the mine, about 200 kilograms of uranium-235 had disappeared. As it turned out, the missing uranium had undergone nuclear fission and split into other atoms. It turns out that nature accidentally created a nuclear reactor that operates under very specific conditions necessary for the sustained release of energy. And this really happened. First of all, there was enough uranium-235 in the ore to sustain the reaction. Secondly, uranium-235 naturally decays, releasing a neutron that initiates the fission process. And finally, there was enough groundwater at the reactor site to slow down the neutrons and regulate the reaction. The time capsule of the Theopetra cave. Just think, 130,000 years ago, people had already chosen this cave as their home. These are exactly the conclusions archaeologists came to while studying the Theopetra cave in the heart of Greece at the foot of Meteora. This amazing piece of land was formed between 137 and 65 million years ago. People found a cozy place to live in this cave, and its interior turned out to be exceptionally spacious, about 500 square meters. And what's especially nice is that the cave is so bright thanks to its huge entrance. The exploration of the cave began in 1987 and lasted for 20 years under the careful supervision of Dr. Nina Kiparisi Apostoliki. Initially, the cave served as a shelter for the sheep of local shepherds, but later it became a key site for archaeologists throughout Greece. And here's an interesting fact. Theopetra is the only cave in Greece where the historical timeline from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic is clearly visible. Such a scientific window into the past is truly rare. Pickled mummy? Researchers discovered that in the mummy known as the Mysterious Lady, a small fetus was preserved for more than 2,000 years. Their discovery is based on CT scan data and was published in the journal Archaeological Science. The Mysterious Lady is not just a mummy. She was pregnant at the time of her death and was part of the community of Thebes. Her age at the time of death is estimated to be between 20 and 30 years, and the fetus was between 26 and 30 weeks old. And this is the only known case of a pregnant mummy that underwent the embalming process. Surprisingly, until last summer, no one knew about the fetus in her womb. A previous study using X-rays did not detect it because its bones were not mineralized. It turned out that the Mysterious Lady did not die during childbirth. Her body was treated with natron. This is a type of salt that dries out the body and acts as a disinfectant. And the fetus was left untouched by those who mummified the body, which allowed the womb to remain in perfect condition. Thanks to this, researchers discovered that the blood in the fetus became more acidic since the levels of ammonia and formic acid increased, which led to minimal bone mineralization. And since the womb remained hermetically sealed, the fetus was essentially pickled, preserved for more than 2,000 years. However, the question remains, why did the embalmers leave the fetus inside the body when all the other organs were removed? Glass brain. Archaeologists made a unique and one-of-a-kind discovery during their excavations in Italy. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD was a catastrophe for a huge number of people. The Roman cities of Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Stabiae were completely covered by the lava and ash from the volcano. Archaeologists are still conducting excavations here, trying to find something interesting. This time, they were lucky. They found a real human brain turned to glass. The thermal energy released during the eruption was 500 times greater than the energy released by the atomic bomb explosion over Hiroshima. The remains of a 25-year-old man from Herculaneum, who died during the eruption of Vesuvius, were discovered in the 1960s. His body was found in a small room in the College of Augustus, a building dedicated to Emperor Octavian Augustus. The young man's body was on a bed, and judging by his posture, he was asleep at the moment of death. To conduct their research and study ancient artifacts, archaeologists have to piece everything together bit by bit. The archaeologists quickly decided to open the young man's skull and discovered his brain had turned into glass. No similar vitrification was found elsewhere in the body. Analysis showed that the material in the skull was indeed human brain. Characteristic fatty acids were found in the glass fragments. They couldn't have entered the skull from outside, since there were no traces nearby. By examining the charred remains of the wood, scientists determined that the temperature in this area reached up to 520 degrees. The fat in the man's body literally ignited, and the soft tissues evaporated. After that, the temperature around dropped sharply, which led to the vitrification of the brain remains. The man's lungs turned into a spongy mass, which was also not observed in other remains. Scientists have already seen similar lung damage in victims of more modern tragic events, such as the fires in Dresden and Hamburg during World War II. Let's move from the glass brain to glass tools. The man of metal. Back in 1719, in the ordinary mining town of Falun in Sweden, everything was going as usual, until the miners on shift stumbled upon a strange discovery. It was a human body. The young man looked as if he had just died moments ago. Overall, dead bodies were nothing unusual. No one was surprised by them. But this dead man turned out to be made of both flesh and metal at the same time, as if every millimeter of his body had been treated with something and coated with the thinnest layer of metal. Even a skilled craftsman couldn't do something like that, because every single hair on his body was covered with metal. The mine's management didn't know what to do with such an unusual find. The corpse was put on display in the local museum, where visitors saw the unusual exhibit as a miracle, believing that the man had been metallic even while he was alive. Almost like the Tin Woodman or a Terminator, one day some grandchildren brought an elderly lady to the museum. She stood in front of the exhibit for a while, clutched her chest because she recognized her fiancé Mats Israelsson in the display. It had been about 40 years since they last met. The young man was hurrying to a date with his fiancée, but he never showed up. For a while, people searched for Mats. Gradually, his parents calmed down and accepted it. His friends forgot about him. The girl married someone else. Most likely on the way, he encountered criminals who killed him and threw his body into a mine shaft. The deceased really should have been buried, but the local authorities realized they could make money from this. There were a huge number of people wanting to visit the museum, and tourists came from neighboring countries. As they say, money doesn't stink, but the exhibit started to. The metal layer, under the influence of air, began to thin and evaporate, while the organic matter simply started to decompose. In 1749, the body was buried, but 10 years later it was dug up again and returned to its previous place. Only in the 1930s was it finally buried for good, leaving a wax copy in the museum. But it turns out that the victim of a random murder is not the only such case. There were other discoveries as well, representing a combination of organic matter and metal. In science, this phenomenon is known as pseudomorphism. This is an effect where some minerals replace others while preserving their external shapes. It's problematic to reproduce this in a laboratory. It's too expensive, time-consuming, and pointless. The case with Mats went down in history precisely because of the scale of the process, which affected a human body rather than the remains of a small animal, an insect, or a shell. Ritual figurines. Built after 1325, the Great Temple served as the spiritual center of Tenochtitlan until 1521, when Spanish conquerors destroyed it. But thanks to the efforts of the Templo Mayor project and Aina, the history of this temple comes alive before us once again. Templo Mayor was not just a building. It was a place of worship for Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, symbolizing war and fertility. Today, its remains can be seen not far from the Zocalo in Mexico City. Recent excavations have revealed the Etlaocalli, a treasury where figurines and various objects were found. These discoveries tell us about the ancient culture and rituals of the Aztecs. As archaeologist Lopez Lujan states, these figurines had special significance in religious rituals. A stone chest was also found, dating back to the reign of Montezuma III, which contained more than 186 relics. These discoveries are evidence of the rich and unique culture of the Aztecs. Mysterious clay balls. In Turkmenistan, in the Karakum Desert, archaeologists have resumed excavations of the ancient city of Gonur Depe and they found something very unusual. After a 3-year break caused by the pandemic, scientists returned to studying this important Bronze Age site. Gunur Depa is the ancient center of the mysterious land of Margiana, which existed about 4,000 years ago. One of the most unexpected discoveries was clay balls with pieces of pottery stuck into them. The balls were arranged in a certain order and apparently were used in rituals. Nothing like this had been found here before. Figurines were also discovered, as well as strange cone-shaped objects made of minerals with glaze. They may also have had ritual significance or were used for divination. Interestingly, similar objects have been found over a vast area from the Gulf of Oman to India, and even in Western Turkey. This supports the theory of the existence of a Central Asian sphere of interaction, when different cultures actively exchange knowledge, traditions, and technologies. New mysteries of the St. Belek slab. Scientists have been actively studying the ancient St. Belek stone slab, which is thousands of years old, since its discovery in 2014 in a French burial mound. In 2021, it was recognized as the oldest map of Europe. Researchers believe that the slab may contain clues to treasures, based on the drawings and symbols carved into it. This unique artifact made of slate was first discovered in Finistère, in western France in 1900. But the mystery of the slab remained unsolved, and it lay in the castle for more than a century until scientists began to study it again. The slab, measuring 2 by 1.5 meters, is believed by experts to be a map of the Brittany region. Rivers, mountains, and other natural features are engraved on it. Interestingly, the depressions on the slab may indicate ancient settlements or burial mounds. When the engravings were compared with modern maps of Brittany, an astonishing 80% match was found. The study of this ancient map is ongoing. It covers an area of 30 by 21 kilometers, and it may take scientists up to 15 years to study it fully. Excavations near the location of the slab have already yielded new fragments that were used in the construction of ancient tombs. Africa in Israel. In the south of Israel, in the Negev desert, archaeologists have been studying the mound of Tel Malhata, one of the sites associated with the biblical city of Malada. Among the 6th century finds near Christian burials, they discovered something unexpected. 5 hand-carved figurines made of black wood, Ceylon ebony, which grows only in southern India and Sri Lanka. This is already a mystery, but the most surprising part is the faces. The figurines depict male and female torsos with expressive features, broad cheekbones, flat noses, and high foreheads. Researchers are sure that these images show African features. On their heads are massive headdresses with holes, possibly to wear the figurines as pendants or amulets. The burials themselves are Christian. Nearby were glass vessels, jewelry made of bronze and stone, alabaster items, and among all this, figurines that clearly come from another culture and another world. This is not just a trade item. This is an object that had meaning. Perhaps these were images of ancestors. Perhaps these were symbols of the homeland, preserved even after converting to a new faith. Byzantine Palestine was a crossroads. Caravans, ships, and merchants came from Africa, Arabia, and India. These figurines could have traveled hundreds of miles, passed through dozens of hands, and ended up here in the sand among the tombstones. For archaeologists, this is a rare find. It shows how deeply and intricately cultures were intermingled. A city in the heart of the Sahara. The Central Sahara in Niger is a territory that is practically inaccessible to people. Any tourist heading south from the Mediterranean coast faced a huge number of obstacles. Giant dunes, exhausting heat, and drying winds create a landscape that is almost devoid of life. But those who venture into the depths of the Great Desert are in for a surprise. Surrounded by sandy canyons on a lonely plateau lie the ruins of the massive fortress city of Jado. These ruins, which are between 800 and 1,000 years old, are a mystery. The city emerged when this part of the desert was much wetter and more fertile. Little is known about the people who lived here, and who built this city remains unknown. The fortress city of Jado is Ixar, a typical North African fortified settlement. Such settlements usually consist of residential buildings constructed around a central storehouse for provisions, with an emphasis on defensive functions. Ixars like Jado were built from palm trunks, covered with adobe mixture, hardened by desert winds until it was as hard as metal. What sets Jado apart from most similar Ixars is its incredible size. The colossal fortress towers over the desert, making the rest of the landscape seem insignificant. The Kanuri people, who inhabit the desert in the center of the Sahara, were the last known inhabitants of this place. It is possible that the city was inherited by them from a more ancient culture, about which no records have survived. The turning point that likely forced the Kanuri to leave Jado was the depletion of drinking water. As the green landscape turned into a desert, the water became brackish, and the environment became too harsh for survival. People lived on the Jado Plateau for about 60,000 years, leaving behind rock paintings and other evidence of their presence. Small livestock were bred here as early as the 7th millennium BC, and cattle appeared around 3,500 BC. The rock paintings discovered in the Air Mountains are approximately 5,500 to 4,500 years old. They depict a world with dense vegetation and an abundance of animals, completely unlike the modern landscape. Today, reaching the once great city is very difficult. This part of the world is unstable, and the tribes inhabiting the area are constantly fighting for limited resources. The Kanuri now live in the neighboring desert village of Chirfa, but every year they return to the place of their ancestors to harvest dates. Strangely, the date palms continue to bear fruit. The Kanuri are a remnant of the ancient Kanem civilization, which ruled in the Central Sahara from 700 to 1300 AD. The origin of this empire is shrouded in mystery, and it is unknown whether Jadu was founded during this period or even earlier. If Kanem built Jadu, then excavations could tell us a lot about this culture. But if they inherited it, perhaps someday something else will be discovered, hidden from human eyes and guarded by the desert, waiting to reveal all its secrets. And you can discover even more secrets of the ancient world on our channel. The mysteries of ancient Egypt, the disappearance of the Maya, and the history of ancient China await you in our new videos. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Goodbye, everyone.